I mean, there's no question in terms of like a skill based model. Like Jokic is there's no comparison to what Shaq was. I mean, Jokic can do everything a basketball player can do. He can handle the ball. He can shoot the ball from various ranges. He can post up and score. He can pass and orchestrate an offense. And his game was far more simplistic.
I just don't think this is, I was going to say something crazy. But I don't think this is like some crazy math, here. I just think this is Nikola Jokic and going away. It's not recency bias either. Nikola Jokic had a crazy game, right? The 60-point triple-double.
61-point triple-double.
Yeah, 61, 10, and 10.
In double overtime.
In double overtime. Shout out to my guy Luka who has 60, 20, and 12, and not in double overtime. But that's the story for another day, all right, or for last year. All right, Shaq was asked 2001 Shaquille O'Neal versus 2025 Nikola Jokic, what happens? Shaq says Nikola would be Serbian chicken. He's getting 40. And he's going to dominate him. He says he's going to dominate him so bad, he's going to make his brothers want to fight him. Of course, his brothers, known as some Serbian goons who got into it with the other brothers of the NBA.
The other goons.
Yeah, the other. And seemingly,
the Morris twins.
The Morris twins, and kind of, was ready for the Morris twins. They wasn't backing down at all. All right. But we're looking at this from a Shaq versus Jokic, and we've had independent conversations about where we think Shaq lands as far as all time and things like that, and then we, of course, talked about Jokic over the course of time. This is an interesting thing that was asked upon Shaq. So I'll go to you first. What are you really thinking in this matchup? Where your head goes?
My head goes to where all big man matchups go, and I watched a lot of basketball during Shaq's heyday, his early years with the Magic, and we had a center heavy league. You had Olajuwon, you had David Robinson, you had Patrick Ewing, along with Shaq, and some kind of second tier guys like Brad Daugherty and some others, and great players are gonna get theirs. Like neither guy is gonna stop the other guy. Both guys present some really unique problems to the other guy. I mean, when has Jokic, other than Embiid, had to really, potentially get physically abused by another big? Like night in and night out, that's not the challenge that's presented to him. He's casually the bigger, stronger, sturdier guy in 28 out of the 30 possible 29 matchups in the league. Embiid's the only guy that comes to mind that is going to get a lot of touches against him and has the size and skill and ability to you're not bullying him like he's a little kid, but you're going to take a physical toll on him. And Shaq would certainly do that. But then, Jokic operating at the 3-point line and all points in between, Shaq's not going to be comfortable on those possessions or being that far from the basket and having to do anything. So both guys will give each other problems in different ways. But there's no question in terms of like a skill based model. Like Jokic is there's no comparison to what Shaq was. I mean, Jokic can do everything a basketball player can do. He can handle the ball. He can shoot the ball from various ranges. He can post up and score. He can pass and orchestrate an offense. And his game was far more simplistic than that. And there was really there were three Shaqs. There were late career Shaq that was out of shape. There was Lakers Shaq, who was just a human battering ram. And then there was Magic Shaq, who was really kind of a special athlete in some ways. He did run the floor, and he was a lot leaner than you see him as a Laker. And he would occasionally get the ball and go end to end and finish plays.
Yeah, but
and so what version would Jokic be? What version of himself did Shaq envision when he's saying?
No, they asked him specifically. So it's 2001 Shaq.
So Laker Shaq.
So yeah, Lakers Shaq.
Okay.
Yeah, 2001. Okay. When they beat the 76ers in the finals.
Right.
That version of Shaq.
Okay.
So, that version of Shaq, of course, won league MVP. They won the finals, all of that good stuff. And yes, he was a battering ram and all of that good stuff. I looked up the numbers. He averaged 27, 10, and 3. Those were his, baseline numbers that you just look at on a statistical line there. But, just to make this 2 for 2, yeah, I just don't think this is. I just don't think this is, I was going to say something crazy, but I don't think this is like some crazy math, here. I just think this is Nikola Jokic and going away. It's not recency bias either. How I look at this is when you say about what's in the league now, right? And the first thing a lot of people will say is, yeah, a lot of competition in Shaq's era from the center position. But was there really? Because 2001 is the specific number, the specific year, and you can go, I'm not trying to, make this like, whatever. You can go within a couple of years prior or before. That's fine. But those centers that we remember Shaq playing a lot, those elite Hall of Fame centers, they were gone.
They were out. More in the 90s.
Yeah. And so what we have in the league today, which a lot of people don't recognize and respect, is that because they say, yeah, there's no centers in the league, but there's not a lot of offensive centers. There's a lot of defensive centers. That's really known and great on defense. Draymond Green is a Hall of Fame defensive, he's one of the best defenders ever to grace the NBA ever in whatever era. Okay, whatever you think of Rudy Gobert, hell, they gave him 1,000 Defensive Player of the Year awards. You take that up with the people who are voting because they keep giving it to him. That has to mean something. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna keep going. You got Bam, who's a really great defender, and the same for Shaq era. I'm not dismissing because this is the exact same thing. What I'm trying to say is those centers that were prominent in the league when Shaq was in 2001 in that little small era there. It's the same this year, same as now. So you got Dikembe Mutombo. Dikembe Mutombo is not a, whatever.
Well,
he's a defensive.
As you were saying it, I mean, I would roughly equate Mutombo and Gobert.
Yeah.
As relative comps. I guess you would probably say, Alonzo Mourning would be maybe like a Bam level guy.
Yeah,
something
like
that.
I mean, a little better.
Smaller than Shaq, but probably a better overall player.
Yeah.
Just some of the other names that I'm struggling to kind of come to mind with some. But, because by 2001, if we're being specific, Ewing, Olajuwon, Robinson, probably kind of into the back end of their careers. Those guys would have been closer to their peak in the middle of the 90s when Shaq first came into the league as a Magic player.
Yeah. And like you said, man, I mean, just to reiterate what you said, I mean, Jokic just is a complete offensive player. And for what it's worth, I mean, he's second in the league in steals. Now, he's not a stalwart defender by any means. I think one of my phones is up a little bit. I don't think they can hear it, though. But not that he's a stalwart defender, but second in the league in steals, that does mean something for the center position. Because you could say, Iverson, there's a bunch of years he was first or second, third in steals, but he literally is just roaming the passing lanes and just, and just trying to wreak havoc that way. That's not the case for Jokic. Jokic is really great with his hands, and that's how he affects the on the defensive end.
I would say with Jokic, though, what his ability to gather steals, and he has great hands, but I think his ability to gather steals is really tied to his ability to read the game and the floor.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, because there's not a lot of people posting him up, he's able to in a way sort of be off the ball and be in positions to read and react to things rather than kind of hugging a specific player that's attacking him in most games and most matchups. And the same vision that he has to find cutters and everything else, that doesn't go away when you're on the end of the floor. You have a knack and a feel for reading what other teams are doing and kind of positioning yourself in a way that you're going to disrupt that.
And like you said, they're two great players. They're both going to get their numbers. I'm a really, I'm a 76ers fan. I'm a Joel Embiid guy. I'll say this to the end of my days because I can literally go to Google and take 10 seconds to show you. Like, yeah, every time Joel Embiid plays Nikola Jokic, he dominates Nikola Jokic. Like, and they win and all of that good stuff. But Nikola Jokic is still getting his numbers. He's still doing well. He's still performing well in those games.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's not like he's having like
it's not
an 8.4.
No,
game.
Embiid is not like shutting him out or anything. He's not pitching a shutout in any of those games. All right, he's just playing better, and not to say Shaq wouldn't play better, but like it's just a different. It's just a different type of matchup in game because I can look at it and say, okay, yeah, Embiid scored 40 and had 15 and they won the game. But Nikola Jokic is still, maybe he only had 28, but he probably had 15 assists and 12 rebounds because that's his game. The 60 points is an outlier. Matter of fact, they showed that they're 0-4 or 0-5 whenever he scores like over 40 points or something.
Well, they went into the game and there was a video of one of the assistant coaches like joking to him. He goes, hey, make sure you warm up getting out of quadruple teams because they had the Nuggets that played the other night were a pretty diluted group.
Yeah.
And so they were missing a lot of pieces. And going into the game, it was already going to be a thing where Jokic is probably going to have to do a ton for them to compete. And he obviously did, and the fact the game goes to double overtime, all that's gonna lead to the type of stats that he had.
Yeah,
but they were pretty shorthanded overall, and they knew he had to go be extra last night, and he was.